Something's happening. Not someday. Not somewhere else. March 21st. Charlotte, North Carolina. This isn't a highlight reel. This is live cage fights. Real rounds, real pressure, real consequences. Prelims at 4. Main card at 7. Be in the building. Or watch it live, wherever you are. Fight for it 27. If you care about fights, Charlotte, North Carolina at the Grady Cole Center is the place to be.
I believe that phrase that who was it? John Wooden said, anything that you can, the worst thing you can do for a family member is something that they can do for themselves. And so that's my whole coaching style. And so if I can get trainees to that point where they are pretty much exploring without the fear of doing it right or wrong, that I feel like that holds way too many people back. This idea of doing it right and wrong, and you haven't even started.
Man,
you know what I mean?
People's motivations, though, that's a huge, it's a psychological aspect to training people. I'm sure, like every time, what their motivations are, what's making them, like you were saying before, for the individual, what works for this person doesn't work for this person necessarily.
Well, that's true. There are some true norths, you know what I mean? Like there are some fundamentals and basics that we all should have in common. Like if I was to ask you, fundamentally speaking, and let's just say we were talking about the jab, what is one of the first fundamentals that you should have when it comes to working the jab?
A straight punch is first thing I'm thinking about.
And that's a basic concept, but not a fundamental concept.
Not a fundamental concept.
So to me, like being able to move forward and backwards is fundamental. Being able to move left and right is fundamental. Being able to go from high to low is fundamental. So directions of movement. Being able to work directions of movement. And you know why? It's because a wrestler has to work those same directions of movement. A boxer, a kickboxer, an MMA fighter, they all have to work forward, backward, side, high and low, and circular is always implied.
This is so cool for me right now because this is prioritizing. Oh, to me, I'm thinking of everything I've learned from you working a jab, and I've kept so many types of things in mind with working my jab, different ways to do a jab. So now this is kind of relieving to hear it this way.
Yeah. So because the basics is when we start getting into the conversation about pattern and structure.
Yes,
and,
I got so hyped earlier.
Dynamics, that's what we get into that conversation.
Example of it.
Huh?
What we did this morning was a great example of it. I mean, I went through the.
And again, if you throw a punch, it all overlaps because there's structure there, there's dynamics there, there's a threat there, there's pattern. But to understand it, you have to dissect it. You have to look at it by itself. And that's where you get your variation from, is in pattern. And that's, to me, where so many martial arts spend way too much time debating whether or not they're right or wrong. Whether the fist is vertical, whether the fist is sideways, whether the elbow comes up, it's all relative to what you're trying to do with it.
Which is so great that you give people the freedom to explore. You give them the opportunity to see all these things that are variations of what could be. I said that bit about it's interesting to think what motivates people, because I can't tell when I'm doing better training with you as a student. Am I doing better when I'm knowing exactly what the objective structure is for the moment, and I'm focusing really hard on that to not mess up, versus if I'm getting the freedom to figure things out. Right now, I think I'm in a sweet spot of all the time training with you that I can understand when to pick it up and when to.
Again, if you understand what you're training for, that's what's going to help mold you. You know what I'm saying? It's like if you look at bare knuckle boxing, and they fight so close, they can get away with a lot of things mechanically that a traditional boxer couldn't get away with, because they're so close to their opponent. Like, they can flare their elbow out, and a lot of times it's a plus because they're fitting into gaps that a gloved fighter wouldn't be able to fit into. And so they can flare out, and because they're close, it's harder to telegraph because they're fighting almost in the clinch.
Yeah.
Whereas if a gloved fighter fighting at distance, if he flares his elbow out too much, he's going to telegraph his strike. So that's why I said it's a lot of freedom, but that freedom has to be related to the objective. You have to know it's not just, well, I like the way that guy throws a punch and I'm gonna throw a punch like that. You know, we don't want to like choose the different decorations on a tree. We want to make sure that we are in the right ecosystem in terms of what we're doing. There's a right tool for the right job. You know what I mean?
That part.
So you still have to have an understanding of it. But like I said, now, if you want to go hit the bag any way you want, absolutely. Like nobody should be giving you criticism for just trying to get in a nice little cardio workout.
Yeah.
You know,
because you're moving, and that's the intended purpose.
That's honestly, that's the fundamental. Moving. You're moving your body. That's the fundamental when it comes to just getting a nice little cardio workout in, whether you're walking down the street or whether you're going to the park, hitting the bag or whatever. Fundamental all day is like, just move your body. It doesn't have to be too elaborate.
You know, the first thing, I know we were talking about the bare knuckle just a little bit ago and flaring out your elbow. While you were saying that, I thought of Josh Emmett versus Ilia Topuria. Josh Emmett is a gifted boxer, but he's so finite in his style, and this nuance of a long hook versus a short hook with your elbow behind it is the difference in that fight. I think there's even highlights in between rounds where it's showing Josh Emmett putting his head down and winging real long hooks while Ilia is closer to him and he's got his elbow flared, but he's throwing short hooks and they're getting there.
Well, yeah, if you got one guy that let's say they throw the same amount of punches over the course of 25 minutes, 15 minutes, 25 minutes, whatever the fight was, right? Yeah, the guy who is throwing the shorter punches is going to probably get there sooner and more often. And then when you talk about the damage that's being done, it's also going to factor into why the other guy is not scoring.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And he's such a brave guy because all those short hooks, those powerful hooks that he throws, when he puts all his weight down on his lead foot and he's leaning out there for a hook to the body, he's putting his chin way out there, like to go. He's leaning so far and with so much power. Usually he meets these people on the street that want to take I don't know why you would want to take a hook for fun from Ilia Topuria, but he's
and that's a good example of what I was saying to Soto earlier about guys hitting the bag and then doing it in real time with a training partner. There's always going to be some variation because of what's coming back at you. And people ask the question, like, why was he able to get away with that in a fight? Why was the punch looping? Why was he able to get away with it? And a lot of it has to do with the fact that he probably hit so darn hard.
Oh my goodness. He probably hit so hard is what I'm thinking.
So if you hit hard and the other guy is afraid to return, then it's highly likely you can get away with certain mechanical mistakes. Not that it's a good idea,
yeah,
but you can get away with it because they just can't counter you.
Yes.
And plus he's sapping their energy. He's causing damage.
Yes.
And he's creating a psychological program inside of their head that they start to respond to. And so they say, man, every time he does this. So yes, you can get away with stuff when you actually have that level of power that he has. And you see it in other combat sports. In boxing, guys like Canelo who have that power, and they change
that power.
It changes the course of the fight.
Yes.
It changes.
Man, he had a display of power, Ilia, with, I don't know if it was his very first match, but it was this guy who was a pretty good boxer. I mean, I think he was funny enough, a really, really good boxer, because he, as soon as the bout starts, he's going for it. He's throwing combos at Ilia, but you could tell, I feel like, anytime he was landing to the body, it was in the apex. It wasn't nobody in there. You could hear everything, and you could just see his reactions. And it's really like a chess game. And I love that it is that that you can decide to, like you said, sort of when you know you're making an effect on your opponent, to go for certain things in a certain way may be lacking in or it may be giving something up, giving a vulnerability in a way. And I don't know, it's to trade with somebody knowing that you have the more powerful strike that you're going for, that they may make contact, but to know that ahead of time is such a brave thing for one, and it's a very undeniable truthful thing.
I feel like for that to be inside of him like that, something had to be developed inside of the gym, before he ever took his first fight, because you just don't know that going out. Like how does a Mike Tyson just come out gunning the way he guns? And you talk about a kid who was 13 years old knocking out adults.
Yeah.
So he had that evidence from the time that he was young in the gym. So that evidence is what gave Tyson that mindset. Like, now that I'm older and bigger, I can take these shots even better and still throw the shots that I want to throw. So whatever Ilya's doing, it had to have been part of his maturation process. So by the time he took his first fight, he's pretty sure that he could do what he does. I wonder why, give me your impression on this. Why is, whenever we're talking about MMA, why is boxing such a big discussion? But nobody watches boxing and saying, man, that guy would be good at MMA. We always putting this this thing about who's the best boxer in MMA. My criteria for being a really good boxer in MMA is if they were boxers. In other words, when I look at guys like Max Holloway and I say he's the best boxer in MMA, I'm saying that from the perspective, like, if you pull him out of MMA, he can actually box. You know what I mean? I'm not just saying that he has the best MMA boxing. I'm actually saying it from the perspective of, if he wanted to go box, he could. And look at Jorge, who am I thinking? Masvidal and Diaz. Not so much. Not the boxers we thought they were going to be. You know what I mean? Like MMA boxing and the knockouts and stuff like that, and the striking accuracies that they had. Yeah, we loved it. Fun. Gives the fans a great fight to watch. But what I'm talking about is, who is the guy in MMA, that boxes well, has good hand strikes, that you could pluck out of MMA and go to boxing? And if we don't have a lot of those guys, then where does the fascination with boxing come from for MMA? Is it the rivalry? Give me your opinion.
That was a great word for it. One thing. If there's more than one thing, if there's just one thing, that's got to be the word for it. But I think it's more than that, and that's a great one. It's now a battle of disciplines, because really, you can't turn your back in boxing. You can't. This is a little
different rule set.
Yeah, different rule set. It decides a lot, I guess. That one thing. I was about to start chanting like the little Poton thing while you're saying who in MMA has it like that. I was about to go because that man right there. How do you think he would fare in
not boxing?
No?
Boxing. No.
No.
And I'm a huge Alex Pereira fan, but not boxing. Because you got to keep in mind, like, there are guys in boxing that hit just as hard as these guys do in MMA.
So what do you think? You're the overseer here. What is the?
I don't have an answer for it really, because I guess I'm shocked by the fascination of it, to the point that there are legitimate arguments at times, like when people talk about Ilya and Max and because he beat Max, then they say, okay, he's got to be the best boxer. Poirier at one time was considered, one of those names floating around. as a really good boxer, of course, Masvidal, Diaz, and all those guys. But nobody looks at it and goes, "Oh my God, Tyron Woodley." No, that was a payday. And so when I look at it, there's not many UFC level guys that I believe, unless they came from boxing, like when Marcus Davis was back in the day, he had boxing experience, but there are not many guys that I would pluck out of MMA right now and say, you can go box. Now, I will say this. I do like the idea of MMA fighters from the UFC specifically boxing one another. With the Zuffa boxing now,
yeah,
I would love to see Dana just take some of these fighters instead of retiring these fighters or firing them or whatever he's doing.
Yeah,
not renewing their contract.
big opportunities there.
Put them on the Zuffa boxing show because I know more of those names than I know the boxers that are on Zuffa boxing.
Yeah,
I mean, they had who is it? Caleb Walsh. I think that was the only name that I knew from the last two shows that they've done. Like, that's the only name I know. And
this is so weird, the names that get traction, and this weird thing about boxing isn't popular until there's a crossover, or that's the thing that people want most. And there's this like conflation of like, you couldn't last a second in MMA if you're a boxer. You couldn't I kind of hate it. It's kind of frustrating to think that somebody don't have a chance in boxing just because they do MMA.
You got a chance if you can train for it.
And what if I'm more so, I like my favorite boxers: Mike Tyson, Prince Nazim, why can't I think
Ray Mercer?
Oh no,
I was saying Sugar Ray.
Sugar Ray.
Which Sugar Ray?
Yeah. Why can't I think of his name right now?
You talking about Ray Leonard?
Ray
Robinson.
Ray Leonard. Oh, I know who Ray Robinson is.
Right.
But my personal favorite, I like the guys who made the whole entire sport look like they were just way down the road with their style.
Yeah.
Is
like
it
ahead of the game?
Ahead of the game. And I think that's what people really want to see. They want to see somebody who's beating all challenges. There's something about it's kind of not enough for the sensationalism of the sport. For people that don't train, they probably need more and more and more, and it's not enough to see somebody who just did the most amazing feat, beating somebody in the heavyweight division. Poatan is a killer to me. I wouldn't think that I think highly of him till I see anything different. And
I tell you, like kind of like what Soto was saying before he left, he had to tighten up his defense a little bit because MMA lets you be so wide, and when we look at Francis Ngannou, when he made that switch over, a hard puncher, but he got KO'd by Anthony Joshua.
Oh my goodness.
And I think that Poatan would have that same problem, is that his defense is so wide.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
And they have hard punch. I mean, that's all they do is punch majority of the time to the head. So that's the difference, is why I say his power, I don't think MMA power is lacking as much as they don't spend the same amount of time developing it. So,
and there's nuance there that isn't going to be there because of the rule set and the disciplines, what people do and what you will face. And there's realities there in each discipline that both aren't accustomed to. Either side, they maybe just they wouldn't fare well, or they are not. They haven't even seen it yet.
Well, they got to spend some time in the gym before jumping into these big fights, because even when Ngannou jumped out there, it wasn't years. It was less than a year, and he's already in a big boxing fight.
Yeah. One of the biggest he could get.
So he was just leaning on the boxing power that he had already, or the punching power, I'll put it that way, that he already had. And he hasn't developed that little nuance, in his movement, in his defense especially. And but I think that anybody can have the power with and be competitive in any fighting environment with an adequate amount of time to prepare for it, because you're going to prepare one or two ways. And one, you're going to prepare, well, let's say three ways. One is physical. One is just straight up, I'm just in better shape than you. And then that goes a long way to win fights. And then the other one is technical, you know, but technical doesn't work if you're trying to make up time. And then the other one is strategical. And strategy is just enough to make a good fighter look bad, you know, if you have the right strategy that works against this opponent. And I've seen that work in real time, even with my own experience. I had a guy, and I'm not making this up, man. You have to ask Al Simmons, who was one of the matchmakers for Fight Lab. And Al had a guy that he sent to me, and this guy wanted to do a jiu-jitsu tournament, and he was a heavyweight. And at the time, so this was in the 90s, so there wasn't a lot of brown belts around, but the tournament that he went to, he had 2 brown belts. And this guy didn't even have a belt in jiu-jitsu. But using strategical movement, you know, I taught him how to do a snap down and go to a guy's back. Snap down, go to a guy's back. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it, maybe one choke. And he ended up winning gold in one division and silver in another one. So by just using strategy, you know what I'm saying, not being technically proficient. And then as far as size go, he was just the same size as the other guys, but I will say he was a little bit younger, but he was a pro wrestler, professional wrestler, wore a mask and everything. You know what I'm saying? But you can win strategically.
Yes. You
can win strategically. I think that a lot of the MMA fighters, they jump, you know, head first in. And I think, man, all that MMA that you've gone through, all that training you've gone through, the fight IQ stuff, and it goes out the window when you get into boxing, man. Goes out the window. Totally disappointed when it goes out the window. Because
that's the inherent truth of it all. You can know what to do, but it comes down to what you're capable of doing. And there's a relationship there, same with the modalities, that just being in the different modes of training, structure or pattern, structure, dynamics, threat. I was feeling like you would love this. As you were saying that, I'm thinking of like antelope, how they actually stand a chance to get away from a cheetah who's so fast. They are lateral, they juke, and they last long enough to get away from a cheetah who has a duration of time where they're at their peak, and then they gas out. And if they can have high endurance and speed, but mainly agility is probably their highest attribute, and they need it most against a cheetah. But if they're getting a sip of water at a lake and a crocodile, that's their domain, where they gotta now, what's their move to do? They're hopping, and God, good luck to them.
Well, it depends on how far they're into the water.
Yeah, they might be at the.
If they're on the edge, they still have a chance.
Yes.
But that's a good point, is that the fighting environment matters. You know, and I would always, it goes back to me, like when I tell fighters that you need to fight your fight. You need to fight. First of all, in order to fight your fight, you need to know your fight. And a lot of fighters don't have an idea who they are and where they want to fight.
Yeah.
You know, they feel like I got to do everything.
It's overwhelming, that feeling, first of all.
I always look at it like this, like, you know, everybody feels like, oh, I need to be a black belt, but there were black belts before you. So then you're still just going to be, depending on like what the context is, you're still going to be, you know, second rate, you know, until you catch up to their skill level. You're still going to be a second rate black belt. So if you look at those other areas that I talked about, especially strategical and changing your format, like maybe you're the best jiu-jitsu guy in MMA, but that doesn't make you the best jiu-jitsu guy in jiu-jitsu, you know what I mean? But if you can understand where you fit in, understand who you are, understand what skills you bring to the table and where you can use them, and understand like where you like to fight, where you can fight, where do you fight best, dude, you'll be considered the best in the world at something. I'm not sure what we are calling it at the time. There's so many darn combat sports these days. Yes. They got people kicking each other in the legs. They got people slapping each other. Tai Tuivasa got this thing where the two people run at one another.
Oh my!
And
goodness.
try to knock each other down or out.
Yes.
Of course, they got the medieval stuff. They got stick fighting MMA. It is so. They got the team competition MMA.
And MMA should be, well, given that you said even down to, I mean, you said medieval. I can't even.
I don't even try sometimes. Like looking at this stuff, I don't even try. My brain won't let me look at some of this stuff.
Yes. Well, this now is saturation. We're at a point of there's so much, and it's not a problem. I think that, man, we're in such a phase we're in right now. I think for one, there's so much out there, and Dana says I think we'll get to a point where there's like 3 channels. I know. For one, I wanted to say this real quick. This also is a good point to like this whole divisiveness between the other disciplines that all play a part in MMA, but then how they are on their own. We look at boxers in MMA like they won't stand a chance a lot of the times against true competition in professional boxing. And it kind of gives an appearance like there's no good boxers in the UFC if just any boxer in professional boxing would wipe out all the.
Yeah, that's the illusion, because you have to ask the question like, could any one of those guys come over to MMA and do well? And they wouldn't. It's just that we don't see it because they always go back to the one thing that's their out route is they say not enough money.
But we know
that's why we're not going to see Terrence Crawford come over.
Yeah,
you see what I'm saying?
It's real crazy when it goes to grappling or when it goes to a place where a fighter. We've seen several people. I wouldn't even want to include CM Punk, but we've seen certain people get a taste of MMA, and as MMA junkies, as MMA fans, we all know when the tide is turning. We can feel it. And there should be money there. There should be excitement there for people to prove themselves in boxing. It should not be this huge. That should be the thing. If you are saying now that the best jiu-jitsu guy in MMA isn't the best jiu-jitsu guy in jiu-jitsu, our goal, low key, as people under the same hub, even though everybody's competing against everybody in MMA, I stand for MMA. And when somebody says an MMA fighter won't stand a chance in boxing, I'm finna box them. I'm finna box them up. Like, that's how I'm feeling. And strategy is above it all.
Shell Shock BJJ, located in Fuquay Varina, NC. We offer jiu-jitsu, MMA, and kickboxing classes to men, women, and children. We will match our instructors to your level of experience. We are dedicated to providing a safe and productive environment because at Shell Shock BJJ we believe, not all family is blood. Find us online at fuquay-varina-martial-arts.com. Schedule an appointment by calling 919-518-5204.
Above it all, and when you see certain fighters bring some certain things to the table and physically capable to do so, that's why I'm talking about Poatan, Ilya, and Mike Tyson above a lot of people. And boxers, majority of their game is behind boxing. I mean, Mike Tyson, we already know.
You know, when Anderson Silva fought Jake Paul, if it wasn't for that, I think it was a knockdown or something like that. If it wasn't for that, I thought Anderson Silva was actually winning. You know, strategically, he was actually doing a good job. But I think that knockdown might have been questionable, a slip or a trip, bad balance or whatever. But I thought Anderson Silva fought a very good fight. And it just goes to show, like, even at his advanced age, you know, the knowledge that he has, being able to apply his fight IQ. Again, I'm not going to argue like who's better, boxing or MMA. I'm not going to argue if this person or that person could do well in boxing by leaving MMA, or if the boxer could do well in MMA by leaving boxing. It comes down to, will we ever see it? You know, and are we going to pay those guys what they're allegedly worth when they do it? Because the other part is this: we're changing the ecosystem,
yes,
to where the name means more than the thing that they do. Because if we can have porn stars, I don't know if you're like Jason Love fought some guy because he slept with the guy's wife or whatever in a porn movie or whatever it was. If we can have porn stars who have something that looks like a reputation, a name, with no actual combat sports background, and that's making headlines. Yeah. And I'm in the gym every day, getting pounded by these mother suckers. You see what I'm saying? Kicked in the leg
every day,
going home bruised, and I can't get no headlines. But these porn stars who have nothing relevant to the combat sports world, then I know that the ecosystem is changing. It's all about the namesake. And so anybody with a little bit of a reputation, like any of the YouTube stars, anybody with a reputation, that in a sense is all you need now to make a fight. And so I feel like what we miss out on a lot is going back, using Zuffa boxing again. I said it years ago, Masvidal and Conor should have fought a long time ago. Because they already had the names back then. Because Masvidal had the street boxing stuff, a protege of Kimbo, and of course his Strike Force and MMA record, UFC record combined. So he would have been a perfect example. And then it would have gave Conor something that looked like retribution after the Floyd Mayweather thing. You know, he could have came back and it would have did well. I believe it would have done well. And then when, like I said, when Zuffa boxing does finally get into the ecosystem, I'm like, this is not what I expected. I was really thinking that they were going to take UFC fighters and really have a different format and let them box one another. I'm not necessarily saying you got to have boxing and MMA gloves, but just the idea of, you know, they just released Jalton Almeida. Jalton Almeida taking on some other heavyweight who's been released from MMA.
Yeah,
would be great.
Oh man.
Because the fact that I know Jalton Almeida and don't know anybody who's on fucking Zuffa boxing should tell you a lot.
Yeah.
You know? But that's what I was like paying attention to, was like, why aren't they doing that?
Yeah.
Especially because if people can come out and do leg kick fighting, slap fighting, charge at each other like bulls fighting, all these different formats, right? Then why don't you just do something that's still got the element that looks like competition? And just by saying, you know what, we're going to take our former fighters, and instead of letting them go to PFL, instead of letting them go over to dirty boxing and bare knuckle boxing, why don't we utilize their talents
literally
in our own organization?
This is so, man, there's space for this. There's space for the company to work like this, to have these different disciplines under the same banner. We see it everywhere else, and it shows in how certain cards play out when the crowd is booing, they're restless or whatever, or Almeida would be crazy to see in a boxing bout.
And then that's when some of the conversation you were having, like some of the things you were saying about Poatan, that's when it makes sense to me, because they would still have certain MMA dynamics, and then they could fight against each other because they have those same tendencies and those same habits. And so the fights would be exciting. You know, you might as well just say, like, just because a certain fighter has good footwork, I want to see him in ice skating. No, it's not the same thing. It's the different types of footwork. It's not the same thing.
Something's happening. Not someday. Not somewhere else. March 21st. Charlotte, North Carolina. This isn't a highlight reel. This is live cage fights. Real rounds, real pressure, real consequences. Prelims at 4. Main card at 7. Be in the building. Or watch it live, wherever you are. Fight for it 27. If you care about fights, Charlotte, North Carolina at the Grady Cole Center is the place to be.